All right. So today we're going to be talking about part 5 and 6 of the Real Estate 101. So I'm going to dive into a share screen and then we're going to get started. So we got lots of good information here. And let's see. I'm going to go right in Canva where I created it. It's going to be the easiest place to find it. All right. I'll make that a little bit bigger. So is anyone actually, as we've been doing part 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and all of that, there's been assignments at the end of each section. Has anybody been doing the assignments?
I have a scripting partner. I have scripting.
Yay. What else? Anybody? No? So the assignments are just so like here, part 3 had an assignment. It's just to kind of help keep you on track. And maybe those are things you've already done, which is why you haven't been doing the assignments. Okay. So we're going to start with talking about working with buyers, and then part 6 is going to be working with sellers. And so I put this down. I know a little bit of what we talked about last time was the whole A to Z working with buyers and sellers. That's kind of like what it looks like from the start to the finish as a quick checklist reference. This is going to dive a little bit deeper. So when you're working with the buyer, it's going to start with the buyer consultation. So we want to make sure that we have that marketing packet that we're going to give them at the buyer consultation, right? We've talked about packets before. We do, for those of you, because I know we've got some new people in here. Imagine that you go to show a house and you just walk in and you hand them the sheet for the house and that's it. Then you're kind of just walking around and talking about the house, which is fine. None of this is required that way. The only thing that's required is getting your exclusive buyer's agency and consumer guide signed ahead of time, which I highly recommend doing on Dotloop before you go to the house. I don't want the situation where I get to the house and either they didn't want to sign it when they read it and then they no show me, or they get to the house and you're standing on the porch and you're awkwardly trying to get something to sign before you open the door. And you shouldn't be opening the door and going inside until you have it signed. Imagine the person that you don't know, because this is probably not a referral, it's an internet lead maybe or something like that. And then they just don't want to sign it. And now you're already in the house. Don't put yourself in those sticky situations. I mean, it would be really uncomfortable to keep saying, I need you to sign this, and they ignore you and walk around. That puts you in violation. And so I choose to, but you may or may not, I choose to say, hey, Brittany, before we go see the house and before I can even schedule the showing, I need to go over a couple documents with you and explain what they are. And then I'm going to need you to sign them. And if you have a second person that's going to be purchasing with you or a spouse, I'm going to need their signature too. And then go into what it is. You can't just say, I need you to sign 2 documents and not explain what they're signing. Dotloop isn't just here's the docs and now I no longer have to talk about what these documents are. Explain what it is, which we'll talk about in scripts and go over those details so we don't turn this into a contracts class. But then we get it signed and I say, I can't even schedule the appointment until this document is signed or until these documents are signed, which is the consumer guide and the buyer's agency. So when you go on the MLS and you go to showing time, a window does pop up that says, did you get your buyer's agency signed? And then I ignore the little line at the bottom that says, or will you? And then you say yes. I don't care if it says, or will you? Yes, I did get it signed. So I'm getting it signed, then I'm scheduled the appointment. That would be my best recommendation. But then when I come to the house, I want to be able to say, hey, you know what? I've got some valuable information to go over with you. So let's go take a second to go in the kitchen, on the counter or the kitchen table or wherever we need to, and let me give you some information. So that's what's in my marketing packet or my buyer packet, whatever you want to call it. And in there could be a bunch of different things. Since we get to have Canva, I would recommend diving in there and looking at the templates. Some people buy them on Etsy. There's all kinds of different ways of getting your marketing packets together. I like to have 5 buyer and 5 seller ready to grab and go to put into a glossy red folder with my card in it. I have an appointment. I'm not creating now. Don't don't add extra work for yourself 5 minutes before you're about to go on an appointment. Don't be spending time, before you're going to show a house trying to create a marketing packet. This is a business. If you owned a restaurant, you would know what the recipe was before you started bringing people in the door, right? So don't put yourself in that kind of pressure. Get it done now. And so in that packet could be a combination of different things, but who I am, and it's not, I've been selling houses this long. I don't think anyone gives a care how many years I've been selling houses or how many houses I've sold. What they want to know is, what are you going to do for me? And so that's what I put. This is who I am. This is what I'm going to do for you. And then I give a sheet on what does the process look like so they know what to expect. And we talk about that a little bit. Then I talk about, maybe next steps. Have you been pre-approved? Maybe I have a sheet in there that talks about our partners, our title company partners, all these different things so that they can start having an idea of what's going to happen as we proceed through the process of looking at houses and ultimately making an offer. So that's the kinds of things I mention here, and I talk about this all the time, which is the LP Mama script. That's one of the most important buyer scripts that you can master, and you need to know because this is how you're generating conversation. I would not take my time to go show a house if I haven't spoken to someone. With all the weird scams and crazy stuff going on in the world, I'm not just going to go show a house based on a text message, unless it's a referral to me and I kind of know who the person is. Otherwise, I want to get on the phone. And then once I'm on the phone, hey, I know you want to see the house over on whatever street, but is that the only location that you're looking? Can I send you some other properties and some other details? That house is 350,000. Is that the price range you're looking? And all through the LP Mama script, it also helps you qualify them. If they say, oh, I just went on Zillow and I just requested a showing and I just want to see the house, that's fine. But as a professional, I kind of just need some details from you. You don't walk into your doctor's office and say, I need to be seen, and then someone doesn't ask you a series of questions. That's not I could read your mind in what you're needing. You're providing a service. Don't let them bully you into just being a tour guide. It depends on how you want to run your business. Do I just want to be a pop-up agent who's just going to randomly go out and show houses to one person one time who doesn't buy it and then do that all the time? You're not going to have a whole lot of pending transactions then. This is your profession. Handle it that way. Ideally, you do a buyer consultation at the office or at a coffee shop or someplace before you show them houses. That's not the reality, though. Good luck and tell me if you get someone to come in the office and meet with you who just wanted to go see a house before going and seeing a house. Unless, again, it's someone that you know in that kind of situation. So don't jeopardize the showing because you're trying to insert something that they don't know what you're trying to do. Do it at the house. It's perfectly okay to do it at the house. Explaining different things to them about the process. So at the time, they don't get blindsided when they think about, oh yeah, what loan type were you thinking about doing? Have you spoke to your lender about that yet? Because if you're writing an offer, you're going to need to know those things. So I would say get very comfortable with what the purchase agreement says in particular, even before you go show houses. Now, for all you high C personalities, do not take that to heart and literally. Don't say, I turned down a lead because Gina said I should get comfortable with the purchase agreement first. I don't mean it that literally, but it's a good idea if someone goes and looks at a house that you know what the right questions are so that you can fill out the purchase agreement. You're not doing it sitting there with them. And so I need to know when I go get to my computer, what are we offering? What are you pre-approved for? What loan type? And by the way, get me your pre-approval or proof of funds if you're cash. Did you know what earnest money is? If they've never heard of that before and you're blindsiding them with, hey, just so you know, we need about $1,000 earnest money. What's that? You need to have those conversations at that buyer consultation so they are understanding what that's going to look like and what expectations there are. They may not know what kind of inspections, they've never thought about inspections before. Listen, if it's a multiple offer situation and we're on crunch time, we don't need to go getting crazy explaining every damn home inspection, mold inspection, pest inspection, all these different inspections. Have an understanding that there are some different inspections and what would you like to do? You don't need to get crazy elaborate. You may lose the transaction because you have 25. I'll be honest, I got 2 offers on my Wales listing. And we actually took the lesser by $20,000 offer. Why, you're thinking? What the hell? Why would anybody do that? Well, here's why. Because the first offer, I think the agent just blew up the price to get the house accepted, knowing that it's not going to appraise for that. I did the CMA. It's not going to appraise for 20,000 higher. It's not. And they just want to get their offer accepted, and then they'll deal with renegotiating price later. It was an FHA loan, and not only did they want to do a home inspection, they also wanted to do a sewer scope and a mold inspection and a radon inspection. And again, it was already FHA. I already know my seller has all of her money tied up in this house, and her equity is what she's using to buy a new house. She's not fixing things like it. And by the way, the house is built in 1947 and there's a lot of trees, and they want to do a sewer scope. Not going to go well. That's a problem for the buyer in the future. She's never had any backups, but we're talking about digging up yards and having big problems. So I explained to my seller, don't look at the $20,000 more. That's monopoly money. It's not real. And with FHA, there could be some repairs required. And the other offer is conventional. They're putting $50,000 down and they're only asking for a general home inspection. And by the way, they're going to give you the possession that you want, and they're going to do the contingency on you finding something. So we did the reverse contingency, whereas I told her, because she's also a buyer, she's also my sister, and she drives me crazy. And I told her, listen, we are not looking at houses until we get your house listed and we get an offer on it. There's no reason for you to be on this roller coaster ride because you found the house of your dreams. We are not making a contingent offer. I just choose to do my business that way. If they persisted and wanted to do one, then I would. But she's going to pay more for the house if we write a contingent offer on the sale of her house, because the seller is going to say, if I'm going to take this offer contingent, I better have all the terms that I want. I'd rather us just, by the way, you can't buy until yours sells. So what is the point and the value in the contingency? I would love for someone to tell me. I don't see it, because they can still market it and sell it to somebody else. They're not just taking their house off the market for you to sell your house. They can still show it, they do, and they can still take other offers. So you're going to lose the house that now you're so disappointed about, and we're never going to find another house that you loved as much as it. So that's my rationale. So we got our house under contract, and guess what? The next morning we went and we looked at a house. And she made an offer on it because we only had a 7-day contingency to release that to be able to move forward on the sale of her house. So she actually found a house in 1 day and not 7. Because then the conversation was, how much do you like this house? I really like it, but it doesn't check all the boxes. Well, one choice would be we wait out the next 6 days to see if something else comes on the market that we can go look at. Meanwhile, this house could sell. Are you going to be okay with that? No. Then we should probably make an offer on this house then. And we did, and we got it together. So we are not just tour guys. We have got to be able to instruct our clients, just like I instructed her about. I mean, again, it's my sister, and I got her 20,000 less for her house because it was a better offer that was probably going to close. Let me also mention this. This is where like understanding the contract and negotiating skills come into play. I used the second offer as a way of getting the first offer up. How did I do that? I called the buyer's agent and said, listen, we do have another offer, and it's quite substantially more than yours. So here's what we need to do. I need to see a little bit of a higher price. I need possession time, and I need you to agree to this contingency that she finds something. 2 seconds later, she's calling me saying, done. So I used that second offer to get this other offer up. And then I went to the second offer and said, would you like to be a backup? And they said, absolutely. I went back to offer number 1 and said, hey, just so you know, we've got a written backup offer. So don't get crazy at the home inspection. Otherwise, we might sell it to them, and their offer was higher. So you have to learn how to leverage that, if that makes sense. It's a gamble, you know what I mean? They could just say no, and I could lose the good offer that, you know, they might say, no, I'm not coming up. No, I'm not doing that. But I'm giving my client those options, right? So whether it's a buyer or a seller, we need to be going down those paths and having those kind of conversations. Could you imagine having that conversation with somebody that was an internet lead? You showed them a house and you never went over any kind of buyer packet with them. You never had any kind of conversation. And now you're telling them, no, we're not doing this and we should do this. And let me give you 5 options and you pick one. They don't trust you yet. You have to get that relationship. That's why you want to do that consultation, right? And also when, like I said, when we're putting together the offer, I don't want to keep calling them every 5 minutes and saying, oh yeah, I'm on page 2 of the contract. I need the answers to these questions too. Having those conversations while you're there and setting expectation is going to make it a lot easier later. You don't look like you know what you're doing if you don't know what your client's loan type is. You have got to put that on the contract, obviously. So I would also say is go as far as if they haven't gotten pre-approved, of course, connecting them with one of our preferred partners, but also having a conversation with those. That's why we have partners. Get to know them, have conversations with them. Some of you guys might have saw in the chat recently, Kurt said, hey, has anyone ever heard of this LTD financial institution or whatever it was? He got an offer on his listing and that's what the pre-approval was. I've never heard of them and I don't think anybody said that they did. That's why also it's important because if I'm writing an offer and I'm sending a pre-approval from ABC lending institution someplace in the world that no one's ever heard of, the trust factor now comes down a notch, right? So that's why that's important as well. Again, it setting the groundwork, having a conversation. Also, as I'm going through the showing, I'm making notes on what the feedback from this house is, not just because I'm going to do the feedback for the agent, but also because it helps me understand what they're looking for, right? So then once we actually get under contract, you're going to go in command and create the opportunity, and maybe you already did that. If I'm in a hurry writing an offer, I'm bypassing command. Sorry, Amanda, I'm bypassing command. That's an extra step that's going to take a few extra minutes. I don't have time for creating an opportunity right now. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, you will when you have your first meeting with Amanda about opportunities. I go straight to dot loop, create the loop and put the documents in there and get rolling. If the deal comes together, then I create the opportunity, which yes, in fact, does create another loop, but I don't care. I make a copy, put them in that loop. I know everyone's like, yes, I know what you're talking about. And others are like, what the hell is she saying? You will know when you're doing that. So you have to have an opportunity created to be able to get paid. You cannot submit a loop to our office without it being connected to command. So that's what the connect is. And we call that an opportunity. And then you submit your documents for compliance, and then you actually fill out the commission. For anyone who hasn't done that yet, your first couple times, Amanda will do that with you. I caution you. Do not wait until the day before closing or the day of closing, which we have some offenders. She's not just sitting around waiting for appointments to come. You won't get paid if this doesn't get done before closing. When do I do my opportunities? After inspections and after appraisal. If there's any time that I might think we might have to make some adjustments to like the price or something, I don't want to do the opportunity and then have to revise it later. So I make a note to say maybe about a week before closing, I want to do my escrow instructions to the title company and do the opportunity. Okay. Questions about that? The documents that you need for your loop. So I just did this with Kelly this morning. And good news, I have a meeting at noon today with Rich after book club to go over cleaning up dot loop and the files, because there's a template that comes from opportunities into the loop that I say bypass. Don't take one of those templates. There's too many documents in it. Also, when you create a loop, it says, which template would you like? Don't pick one, bypass it. There's every possible menu of documents that you need. Could you imagine that you need a purchase agreement, a large print purchase agreement, a purchase agreement with one person, a purchase agreement with 2 people? Oh my goodness. As a new person, if I pull all those things into my loop, I'm thinking, oh my God, there's 25 documents I have to fill out. No, there's like 8. So don't do that to yourself. So I'm going to meet with him and kind of clean that up a little bit, because I keep coming across when I'm going into your guys' loop to proof it, starting out with saying, and those of you who've done this, you know what I'm talking about. Take this out, take this out, take this out, archive that, archive that, archive that, because you don't need it. If it's not a contingent offer, why would you need the contingency addendum? If it's not going to have an appraisal gap, why would you need that addendum? So you pull in there what makes sense that you need, right? And these are the documents right here. So I've got this as a checklist for you. These are the things that you're going to need. As a probably 1 out of every 10, you might need an additional document, but this is like your foundation, right, of documents that you're going to need. Once we go under contract with the buyer, let me also say, when you're negotiating the contract, you can do it verbally for a time and then make some changes and then get everything signed, because we know we don't have a fully agreed contract until everything's signed. It does get a little sticky though, if we go back and forth 15 times and we keep making changes and deleting signatures and all of that. So use your discretion with that. I go back a couple times and then I start making changes to the purchase agreement. We do not change the purchase agreement once it's fully signed. I've had recently a couple people say, can I just go change that on the purchase agreement? No, it's fully signed. That's what we have a blank addendum for. Technically you could do it, but don't pretend like I didn't say that. Just because you might hear conflicting information in a contracts class. Rich will say, well, you can, don't. It deletes everybody's signatures. Imagine that then they get another offer and we've got a contract that has deleted signatures. I'm not taking that kind of chance with my client. So just use a blank addendum or a contract modification for any changes after the fact. It is your job representing the buyer or the seller to confirm that they turn their earnest money into the title company. Thankfully, American Title does do a debit deposit. They don't have to bring a physical check. Not every title company does that. And I know, again, another reason why it's important to use our partners. They're right here. I know that they e-file for closings, and I know that you can just automatically deposit the earnest money right online. Most people don't write checks anymore. So what happens to your client who says, I don't have checks, and the title company is an hour away? They don't do it electronically. Again, why it's important to be using our local people. It's not a deal breaker, but definitely always keep that in mind. As a listing agent, I also want to make sure that the buyer turned in their earnest money. So I'm also communicating as a listing agent, hey, did the earnest money get turned in? The good news with American Title is they email me and say, earnest money's been turned in. So now I don't even have to worry about it and I can check it off my list. Imagine the situation, which has happened to one of our people before, that you didn't verify that the earnest money got turned in, and then they're breaching the contract. And then you got to tell your seller, oh my gosh, we don't have their earnest money because I didn't verify it got turned in. So make sure that that gets done. And use this as a checklist for yourself too. Again, doing your opportunity in command, orchestrating all of the things that are about to happen. Making sure that they also made loan application. Sometimes they have a pre-approval that says something and then they decided to change lenders. We need to know that. We need a new pre-approval and we need to get that to the listing agent. Making sure that they have done everything they need to be doing to get that loan rolling. I have a closing right now on a condo that was supposed to close last Friday, and the buyer didn't get their lender the documents until Wednesday. And we're supposed to be closing last Friday. Now we're supposed to be closing this Friday. Well, that's still not happening because she didn't get them all the documents until last Wednesday. So that's now going to be pushed to next week. So making sure that they keep rolling. It's out of my control because it's not my buyer, it's my listing, but they need to keep that moving. Scheduling inspections. The deal I just got together for my sister, we immediately got on the phone. She did, not me, and scheduled her home inspection. The inspector reached out to me. Can I do it Friday at 10? Yes, it's a vacant house, get it confirmed, got it scheduled with the listing agent, and it's done because I only put 7 days for the inspections. There's no other inspections besides the home inspection in that case. But if there's a well and septic, if there's a pest, any of those things that need to be done, you've got a timeline to stick to. What that means is not we're going in there the day of on day 7 or day 10. Don't go putting 14 days to give yourself a cushion. If you're up against other offers, they're going to go with the one that has the 7 days or 10 days because it's less time that they're in jeopardy of the deal falling through, if that makes sense. Making sure once the inspection happens, is there anything, and how I talk to my clients about the inspection is, hey guys, let me set some expectations for you about the home inspection. It is something that you should be at, for starters. More transactions fall through when the buyer doesn't attend the home inspection. Here's why. It looks way worse on paper when the home inspector puts it on a 45-page document than it did at the house when the inspector said, blah, 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 it's not that big of a deal. But now when you read it officially, it seems way worse. So it's really important that they schedule it when they can be there. And you should be there at the inspection. We have to make sure windows are closed and things are locked up and that they didn't bring their entire family and neighbors along to see the house. That kind of crap starts happening at the home inspection and you didn't have permission to do that. So you should absolutely be there when you represent the buyer. As you represent the listing, you should not be there. And the seller shouldn't be there, by the way. In a scenario, which has happened to me, 95-year-olds on oxygen, can't really get around, not going to make them leave their house. They can be tucked away someplace privately. No seller wants to hear all the conversation and things that are going on at a home inspection. They start to get real offended and it causes problems. I also don't really want my buyer and sellers talking. That isn't some crummy real estate agent trying to keep our, talons in them and away from each other. It's because people want to be people pleasers and help each other out and like each other. And then they start saying crazy things that they really didn't mean. But guess what? The buyer believed the seller when they said they're going to be out early. And now they're not. And now we have a problem. So keep them from talking to each other and therefore they shouldn't be at the inspection. I also tell my buyers, here's what to expect from the home inspection. Here's how long it should possibly take, somewhere between 2 and 3 hours. And what I want you to do when you get the report is just email and text me your possible concerns. There's a reason I say it that way. I do not want a freaking Excel spreadsheet where you itemized every item from the home inspection that you're now asking because you wanted the house to be perfect. My brand new construction isn't perfect. So nothing is perfect. What are the items that would have caused you to say, I wouldn't have bought this house had I known that? Or I wouldn't have made that offer if I would have known I had to spend that $1,000 to fix that thing. That's what we're looking for. Material latent defects, things you could not have seen just by looking at the house. A material latent defect is not a crack in the driveway that you drove over, by the way, when you pulled in the driveway. That's not a material latent defect. A material latent defect technically is also not something that's listed on the property disclosure. They disclose that they have radon because a deal fell through over radon and they said, nope, I don't believe in radon. Believe me, this is something that comes out of seller's mouth. I don't believe in radon because I can't see it. Okay, so you also don't believe in secondhand smoke, I guess, too. It is a real thing, but you know what? I also say to buyers, have you ever tested the house you live in for radon? Well, no. Well, how do you know that you're not been living with it anyway? So there's a lot of ways we can have that conversation. Either way, if the seller discloses that they know that they have it, because why else would they know it than someone inspected for it? And you sign the RPD, which by the way, you have to sign an initial every page or we don't have a fully signed contract. That technically can't be asked for now at a home inspection, right? Because you already signed the RPD agreeing to it. Your time to ask for something like that would be on the purchase agreement when you read over the property disclosure. Something they disclose that you're not happy about should be a condition of the offer if they're not going to worry about it themselves later. That was a whole big mouthful. Questions about that? Okay. Then I look at the list that they've sent me and I ask them to do this. Send me the home inspection report or give permission to the home inspector to send it. Notate the pages of the items that you have concern about, and then let's have a conversation about these items. What's the most important thing to you? We're more likely to get a seller to fix a very large repair than we are nickel diming them to death. I know this sounds crazy, but the seller will come up with $10,000 to replace a roof before they'll come up with $1,000 to fix a leaky faucet and a creaky floor and this and that. Because it's like a bunch of little stupid things, and then your deal could fall through over that. So let's have a conversation about what's important to you, and let's ask for the things that you really want to get done and not put your contract in jeopardy because you're asking for a bunch of little stuff that can be easily fixed later. There's a rationale on that. And then once that happens, you can then write up your, release of contingency. Somebody asked me, Allison, was it you? You did.
Yeah.
Do I still need my seller to sign the ROC or release a contingency, even though they're not asking for repairs? The answer was yes, because your seller has to acknowledge that now this document got signed by the buyer saying we're asking for no repairs.
It's weird hard to know a spot per seller.
Their document,
That's
yeah.
what I figured, so.
Or they cut it
Maybe
off
my
or
spot.
something when they copied it. And also your seller, when asked for those repairs on the ROC, you can make changes to it. Yes, I'll do this. No, I'll do that. No, I won't do any of it. Can I just give them a credit instead? Because I don't have time to do the repairs. There's all kinds of things that we can have a conversation about with the ROC as well. We need it in some cases, but honestly, our purchase agreement already has that built-in contingency release in the paragraph under inspections, which says 3 days after the last inspection has been complete, the contingency is gone. So technically, we don't need the ROC, but just to keep your ducks in a row, so everybody has clarity around it, it's not a bad idea to do it. Okay? Making sure that the appraisal got ordered. I can't tell you the times I can picture, for some reason, I always have this one conversation in my mind. I was watering plants in my back patio and I was arguing with this crazy lender who was from some weird bank around here, who told me that she did not order the appraisal because she was waiting until what? Until the home inspections were complete. And I said to her, you don't have the authority as their lender to breach my real estate contract. You are putting my client in breach. You don't just, I want to save them $500. That's not your place. Don't save them $500. My contract says they will make loan application and everything that goes along with that, including ordering the appraisal in 5 days. If not, we're in breach of contract. We don't, in this market with backup offers, I almost every time I sell a house right now, there's a backup offer. Don't let that happen. Another important reason why we like to work with our partners, because I'm pretty sure, Adam or Matt, you're not telling our clients that become your clients, don't worry, let me save you $500. We'll order the appraisal after you tell me the home inspection went good. It could be 2 weeks later by the time that happens. And now we need to write an extension because the appraisal didn't come back on time. 5 days. Our contract says they have 5 days to do that. So usually buyers don't come up with those ideas on their own. It's something that they heard from somebody or from their lender that is trying to look like a good guy by saving them money, possibly. They also put the idea in my client's head that this deal could fall through after the home inspection. Do we really want them thinking that? We don't, is the answer. We don't want them thinking that. So we have to stay in contact with those people so those kinds of things don't happen, whether it's a listing or a buyer in that case too. Then we need to renegotiate price potentially if the house didn't appraise, unless the lender says, you know what, they're putting enough money down that it doesn't even change anything for their loan goes, which does happen a lot. Or they're putting so much money down. I think this just happened to one of our agents. They're putting so much money down that they got an appraisal waiver because the appraisal wouldn't even matter now. So that's okay. And that's a great thing that happens. But we may have to renegotiate the price. We also need to be aware if we put too much money in the closing costs paid by the seller, there may not be room for any more credits. So I prefer just crediting them to their closing costs and then they can do the repairs themselves later. That way we don't have to worry about getting people over there and getting an estimate and then the work getting done in time for closing, blah, blah, blah. It's easier to give a credit if, so like on the house I just sold, the buyer wasn't asking for closing costs. So I told the agent, we're not messing around with the home inspection. Anything that they find that they want, we're going to negotiate it as a credit towards their closing costs and not actually getting someone over here to fix it. So we're clear already on that. I'm already trying to bulletproof this transaction now. So we've got that groundwork laid on that and we'll do much the same on the house that she bought. All right. Understanding too the loan types and what happens. This condo listing of mine is an OFA loan for the buyer. Very detailed. Like we had to revise the RPD because the seller abbreviated Ohio instead of wrote Ohio. So weird little things like that happen with certain loan types. So then we need initials again and things like that. And some of that stuff will just come as you're doing transaction. You should be at the closing. That's your chance to say goodbye to your client. Bring some kind of closing gift. Maybe you meet them later with the keys, depending on when possession is. I go into a real detailed list of things that you need to know about possession and closing in the A to Z working with buyers and sellers. There's a list. Diving into some different scripts that I've got here for you guys. So I did it as buyer consultation script, listing consultation script, for sale by owner expired script. So there's a lot of different scripts in there too, that could be different things that you are talking about with your clients on that. All right, before we pivot to working with the seller and listing appointments, let me also draw you back to, that is not a checklist for the closing. The checklist for the closing is in A to Z working with buyers and sellers, okay? So in there, it also talks about possession, keys, and utilities. I didn't mention it here. It's in the other one, okay? Because it also becomes really sticky, and some of you guys have maybe heard me talk about this. One of our agents, who doesn't come to a lot of stuff, and that's what I had to say to him. You would know that if you would come to stuff. And what was this? His buyer thought when she closed at the title company that she was driving straight to the house. It was vacant. Why can't you just give me the keys? Well, because the sellers haven't even signed yet. That's why. Just because you signed, the deed hasn't recorded. Thankfully for him, our title company e-files. So it actually did get recorded that day. So she did get to get the keys that night, because she was already yelling at him when she found out that he wasn't giving her the keys at closing, because our contract does say possession at closing or blank days after closing. Understand what the definition of closing is. It's not the signing. The closing is after the signing and the loan has funded, or the wire has been accepted if it's cash, and wire for the down payment has gotten to the title company. Funds have been dispersed, and then the deed has recorded. That is closing. That's final closing. At that point, if it's immediate possession, our contract says 4 p.m. on the day of closing, which is when the deed has recorded. The title company will let you know when that happens, and then you can give them the keys. We're not giving them the keys. And by the way, try to avoid Friday closings on your when you're doing and picking the close date on your purchase agreements when you represent a buyer. Try really hard to avoid a Friday closing, especially when Monday is Memorial Day. They may not get the keys until Tuesday. And let me tell you, if they thought they were leaving the closing table and driving to the house with their U-Haul truck that's in the parking lot here, you're dead to them. You're never getting a referral. They're gonna blame you for everything. Don't put yourself in that situation. I adjust. If I have to go to Monday to close, if Thursday's too soon, then I go to Monday to close. And then if we can close early, that's great. But I don't want them thinking they got this weekend to move in when they don't. I'm not a believer in the early occupancy agreement. I don't even present that to my client. I'm going to say it because you're going to see it and wonder what it is. Pretend like you didn't see it. It drudges up way too many problems. Then people want rent. Then they want renter's insurance and all these other crazy things just for 2 darn days early occupancy. It's not a can of worms I like to dig up. Questions on working with buyers. All right. No offense to buyers agents, wink, wink. Listings are way harder. We all know that for buyers, it's all about the house. If we can find them a house that they want to look at, they'll go look at it with us. I'm not saying it doesn't take skill. It still takes relationship. It still takes skill and all of those things. But the buyer isn't saying you or you or you. And now let me think about it. Oh, you know what? You just sent me a house I like. Yeah, I'll go see it. That's why buyers cheat on you, because whoever sends me the listing I want to see, that's the one I'm going to go look at. And that's the agent I'm going to work with. Don't think for a second that people aren't signing buyer's agency agreements with a bunch of people. They do. We don't know what's going on until we look 6 months later and find out that they bought a house and it closed 30 days after we showed them another house. If you ever want to be horrified by the people that you thought ghosted you, go on the tax record and run their name, and you'll see that they bought a house 2 days after they worked with you. And that's why they ghosted you, because they were working with 3 people. On a listing appointment, it is more of a skill. It is more of a, you now have to agree that you're going to go under contract with me and only me so I can list your house. So you really have to be on your game to get that listing appointment and to be able to get the listing. If you are going on lots of listing appointments and you're never getting the listing, which does happen, it is your skill set. We talked about this yesterday on the project challenge, right? We were talking about if you're talking to 25 people when you aren't getting any appointments, it's a scripting problem. It's a conversion problem. If you call 25 for sale by owners and not any of them ever said you can come over and look at my house, it is not a numbers game. It's you. You haven't practiced enough scripts. You don't know how to convert the lead. So that's where then you need to spend your time digging down and getting a skill set. So when you go on a listing appointment, you need to really know what you're talking about and be prepared. So even more than a buyer, you need a marketing packet for your listings. Who are you and what are you going to do for me? What does the process look like? What kind of photos are you doing? Are you doing professional photos? Please do. I'm sure I put in the chat recently and I said, here's an example of a cell phone picture. The guy's thumb, I'm saying guy, I don't know, I could have been a girl. It was a fat thumb. So I'm guessing it was the guy. His thumb was in the picture because he took a cell phone picture of the exterior of the house that was this way and his thumb was in the way. I mean, don't take cell phone pictures. I'm not saying that when you have your photographer go out that they don't sometimes whip out their cell phone. They do, but they have good software on their computer that they can edit it properly. You're not doing an app on your phone editing. That's not the same. I know we all think our phones take great pictures, but ever look at a cell phone printed photo versus an actual professional camera photo printed? They look very different. So when we look through the lens, it looks really clear, but it doesn't show that way online. So have someone come. You also look more professional when you say to the seller, we'll be back on Tuesday to get professional photos. And when needed, drone footage. So had my neighbor not sold his house himself, I was going to do drone footage on that 975 because it was 975 and he had 2 acres and a pool. So we were going to do the inside and outside drone. So that makes you look more professional. It's worth the expense. It's only a few $100s to do it. I'm not doing a drone for every listing. There's a price point in my mind and something that needs to be seen outside and inside that would showcase nicer with the drone. So when we are doing our listing appointment, I like to have a pre-listing phone conversation, kind of the same as the LP Mama with the buyer. It's in the Google Drive in the folder that's labeled seller. It says red sheet because it used to be on red paper. And what that is not a give it to your client to fill out form. It is a, hey, Brittany, can we have a phone conversation meeting before I come out? Set it like a meeting, set it like an appointment. If you want to sort of mentally get your potential client to think that they're working with you, start saying things like, let's have a phone appointment. The more appointments and the more things like that you're doing with them, the more tied to you they start to feel committed. Well, this is the worst thing. ND will know. I'm sorry I wasted your time. You know what I'm talking about. When someone says that to you, that's not a nice thing to say. I'm sorry I'm wasting your time. That means they're not working with you. They feel guilty about wasting your time because they've decided not to work with you. They don't feel guilty about wasting your time if they're actually going to work with you. So if you can get them thinking that you've committed a lot of time, most times then they're going to start to have their tie to you. So that red sheet goes over, tell me a little bit about the house. Tell me what you love about the house. We just talked about this, and anyone who was at the team meeting, Amy was talking about the same thing. I was on Jose's team. The sheet she used is our red sheet that came from his team. I was a listing partner on the team 10 years ago. So that is what we do. That's where I got that from, actually. So it was funny, everything she was saying in the meeting on Tuesday was like, oh, that's where I got all that stuff from. In any case, that also helps me have an idea. Am I going on this appointment and the house is in good or bad condition? Because I'm asking that question. Tell me about the condition of the home. Tell me about the condition of the home through the lens of a buyer. Because everybody has their own idea of what they think clean is. So tell me, is your house in a place where you actually feel like a buyer would like to see it and want to buy it? And then tell me what you think the house is worth. Not because I need that number to do my comparables, because I want to know, am I coming with good news or bad news? And if you think it's worth $399 because the neighbor around the corner sold for $420 and your house is just a little bit smaller, I'm going to try to find it. I'm going to try to find the comps that can live up to the expectations that you have. When I do my CMA for a listing appointment, I pull the comps based on the information. I don't do a radius. This is not going to be a CMA class, but I'll just tell you, there's a reason I don't do a radius. You can cross over into Plain Township, but you're in Canton City if you do a radius. You can cross over into Lewis and Plain Township if you're in an area of Canton, right? We don't want to do that. Jackson's very much so close to Canal Fulton, close to North Canton, close to Plain Township. It wouldn't make sense if you do a 2-mile radius that goes into another school district. I only use the school district for my search. And then I start ranging things by year, by square footage, by bedrooms, baths, those kinds of things. And then I start chopping the list down. Keep it broad. If I got too many listings, start chopping it down and narrowing it. If you get too narrow and there's no listings, then you need to broaden it back out again. It's not always a slam dunk depending on where the house is. So finding some information out about that would be really helpful. I always send a PDF of my listing marketing packet before I go. And then I tell them that should be coming. And then don't worry, I'm going to bring a hard copy along with me, but I just wanted you to have some time to review that before I get there. It's another way for me to be able to see what their personality type is. How do I gauge their disc personality based on the fact that I emailed them a PDF ahead of time? Well, here's how. If they say, oh my gosh, I have 3,000 emails, I didn't even ever see that it came. That is what personality type? Anybody? That's a high I. The high I's, which I'm a high DI, so I do have an I. Those are the people when you see their phone, it says they have 390 emails that they haven't opened. Makes my eyes twitch even thinking about it. That's a high I personality. So now I know what I'm dealing with a high I. So I need to adjust my personality. They want to be friends, right? If they printed it, highlighted it, and wrote pages of questions about it, what personality type are they?
C.
A C. They are a very detailed person. They are high C. So I better bring graphs and all kinds of stuff because they're going to want to see all kinds of information. A very detailed, very, very detailed person. And a high D would probably say, yes, I saw it, but I just glanced at it because I knew that you were going to talk about it when you came. I didn't need to have it twice. I don't want to waste time. I'm a high D. I'm all about let's just get to it. I can make very clear, good, educated decisions. I wouldn't even had you here if I didn't like you. So don't worry, I'm going with you because I don't have to interview 5 people. I already did my research and you're sitting here because I am going to work with you. And then a high S would probably have read it and they'll thank you over and over and over again for having sent it to them ahead of time. That's a fluffy person who's going to bring you chicken noodle soup. Why do I need to know that? Because I scare S personalities. My hardest personality to connect with is a high S. They're afraid of me and I don't like them because I don't want anyone to be afraid of me and I don't want to have to walk on eggshells around a high S personality. Sorry, S is out there in the world. My husband's an S. And then he's like, that's not a very masculine disc personality type. Okay. I don't know what to tell you. You are an S, but whatever. Knowing those kinds of things, and I do teach the disc class, and we talk about that a little bit deeper, is going to help you during your appointment. Going my listing appointments in 4 phases. The first phase is let's sit down and talk. Maybe you've only talked to the husband and you've never talked to the wife before. Now I give a chance to talk to both of you. Let's also talk about what to expect from today's appointment. That's also when I go over my marketing packet because I like to break up the sitting down and talking in multiple parts. So I don't just dive into the tour. Let's talk. Let's get to know each other. Let's find out what we're going to do today. I'm also going to go over that marketing packet with you. That shouldn't take more than about 20 minutes. Then we're going to do the tour. We're going to take notes. And only then after that, then I go over the CMA. And then part 4 is to roll into the documents, right? So I kind of jumped ahead and talked about each phase there. And then I kind of break it down here. Phase 4 is the documents because I already created my loop before I went, not because I'm being presumptuous that I'm getting the listing, but because I'm being prepared. If you like me, Justin, and we agree on price, and if we're at the appointment right now and I say, so it feels like we're on the same page about the price after we went through this CMA, I feel like after going over the marketing stuff, you like what I had to say. Are you ready to go ahead and get listed today? to save us time in the future, I went ahead and I printed out all the documents and they're filled out and ready to go. I just got to plug in dates and price and I just have a few questions on my input sheet. We can do that right now. And I understand when we walk through the tour, we had a few things that you wanted to do to the house to get ready for photos. That's okay. You said you needed about a week to do that. Let's date it for 15 days from now to give us time to get over for photos and the photos to get edited. Would that be okay? And I'm saying it like I'm going to save you time. We're not going to have to get back together and do this again. Oh yeah, by the way, here's the property disclosure. This is your homework. Please have it ready and on the kitchen table along with the key for the lockbox when I come back to do photos. I don't want to sit here and watch you for 30 minutes, right, filling out your property disclosure. I want you to do that on your own. So that's kind of the script. And then I go into some different scripts here again. Through the whole listing appointment, I've got scripts here for you on taking notes, what you need notes on, what you need to say as you're reviewing the CMA and reviewing the documents. Lots of different scenarios I put in here for you all. And also commission and how do we have a negotiation conversation about the price? How do we negotiate the commission? All of those things I put in here. All of the different random objections as well. So there's just a bunch of stuff in there. Here's your little checklist of what you need to do once you get the listing. You're going to schedule your photos. You're going to get those property disclosures. You're going to set up showing time, input that listing, put your signs up and all of those things. If you have a lever handle, this just happened on one of my listings, the front door has a lever handle. I can't hang my lockbox on a lever handle. It'll just slide right off. So I literally, I wasn't going to make them go to the backyard because the backyard's fenced in. There thankfully was a little white lattice thing next to the driveway where her trash can is hide behind it. That's where I hung the lockbox. And then in showing instructions, I said lockboxes next to garage hanging on the little white fence or whatever. If they have a heavy duty piece of patio furniture, I can maybe put it under the leg or railing. I mean, sadly, I've had to hang them. And for those of you who've shown houses, you maybe have had to open them on the light. Listen, this is short girl problems. Don't hang them on the light. I didn't bring a ladder with me. I can't reach. I've had to have my clients.
Set it in the corner, behind a plant. I mean, it's fine.
You could as a worst case scenario, but sometimes people will steal the lockbox.
Yeah.
So there's weird stuff that happens. I did recently see on Amazon, they actually have a thing you can buy for $20 that hangs on a lever handle, and then it gives you a loop that you can hang your lockbox on. So I might invest in a couple of those just for that same reason.
About scratching the door.
Yeah. So they sell these rubber kind of, even I think our home warranty company used to provide these too. And it would say the name of the home warranty company on it. And there was a rubber kind of a material that hangs on the door. And then it's like a mat that then the lockbox sits on. I use a combination of combinations. I use a combo lockbox and I do also have super lockboxes. Where might I use a super lockbox? Well, a vacant house. A nervous seller that's afraid about people having that code to the, lockbox and memorizing it or whatever. So I do use the Supra as needed, but not on all of them because they're over $100 a piece. And then I had 25 of them and then the board changed them and made different ones. And then I was like, oh, well, great. Now I have all these useless lockboxes. So just be aware of that kind of a thing. Start your marketing, start your social media, get the ball rolling on that. There's no reason to wait. If you know you've got the listing, get that going right away. Start to set the groundwork for how to handle offers. I let the seller know once we get an offer, I'm going to let you know that we've gotten the offer and I'm going to email you a summary. So this way they don't try to decipher what the purchase agreement says and then they call you and want to start countering on the print in the purchase agreement instead of the blank lines because we are not attorneys. We are fill in the blankers. We don't change the verbiage in the contract. We only fill in blanks and change things there.
Change verbiage.
I like to, that was weird. have them see the email of the summary, and that summary is broken down by starting at the top of your purchase agreement, and everything that it says that's important that we're negotiating is in the summary email. And then I set a time to go over that with them, and I label them offer 1, offer 2, offer 3. Even if you don't have multiple offers, the first offer is still offer 1, right? In my dot loop, I put offer 1 Raquel, offer 2 Justin, because I want to be able to, once you start getting a bunch of offers, you want to know which offer was who, and don't put them all in one folder. You could also have many loops after a while, because when Brittany sends me her offer, she didn't attach it to my loop. She put it in her own loop. And now I have 2 loops for that listing. That's okay. In the end, I'm going to put everything in my loop anyway and just make a copy of it over. And then I'm going to archive her loop until, I mean, if we're still going to go back and forth with documents, I'm not going to do that too soon. But you could have 3 or 4 or 5 different loops for the same address. So don't call me and say, oh my God, I lost all my contracts. It's probably because there's multiple loops. Go ahead and search for your loop. You can identify your loop from others if you put something in there that identifies it, like listing but after the address or something like that. Questions on any of that?
When you do feedback, do you share it straight from showing time? I don't, but I didn't know if I should be doing.
So I do push the feedback from showing time, but then I also text them and have a conversation about it.
Okay.
Because I don't want that just to be an email that goes to them that we don't actually take the time to think about, you know, especially when it's a lot of not interested, not interested, not interested. Your seller could start to get really antsy about that and like, what the hell is happening? Even on the listing I just sold that went in 3 days, we had probably 10 showings on it and no one made an offer the first day. And so she's freaking out already about it. And so I wanted her to know, you know, this is what they said, this is what we need to know. So it's both, I guess, to
Okay.
answer your question.
Yeah, like a follow-up after you said, what
Mhm.
they said, okay,
And also to make sure they got it too. So,
yeah.
this is again, just some different things, just like I did with the buyer, that gives you a guide through the different dates and things that you need to note on the offers as you get them. Let me also mention, and then we're gonna get out of here. When you're working with a seller, you're working from possibly, and I won't name them, but other brokerages in our area. You might have brokerage down the street here's contract, which looks completely different than ours. And it's got 25 extra pages and, you know, like how do you look at all of that? You got to get used to looking at other people's contracts as a listing agent, because most of the time it's not going to be a KW legacy agent that writes the offer. It's going to be on their contract. There's a couple of agencies that they're where that says seller contribution towards closing costs is buried in a paragraph. So be careful that you're not agreeing to something for your client that they didn't understand. One of our agents here sold a listing, and I said to him as I was proofing the paperwork for him, hey, does your seller know that they agreed to put in a brand new AC unit before closing? And he said, no, where does it say that? On line 82. That he missed it. Luckily for him, he was his own seller. He was flipping a house and he was like, no, I didn't agree to put in an AC unit. Well, you did. Thankfully, you didn't initial the contract yet. And good thing he asked me to look at it before, because otherwise he'd be putting a $5,000 AC unit that didn't exist at the house. So it wasn't even that it was broken. It had no AC. So be very careful about what you're reading and look over it very closely. And again, you're going to orchestrate the closing, making sure the appraisal happen, negotiating the repairs, no different than when you're working with a buyer. It's all the same. You might have to get estimates on things. You might say yes to everything, no to everything, and you might pick and choose the things that you're willing to do. And then we're going to have a conversation about that. On both working with the buyer and the seller, you need to do escrow instructions to the title company. There is an escrow instructions in templates. So you only fill out the side that applies to your client. It's one document that says buyer and seller. If I represent the buyer, I fill out the buyer side. If I represent the seller, I fill out the seller side. If I'm a dual agent, then I fill out both. Both agents are going to do escrow instructions. You're not responsible. If it's your listing and your buyer, you're only responsible for doing escrow instructions for your side of the transaction. She's responsible for her side. Do not try to figure out commission splits. The title company doesn't care what your commission split is. They only care what the total commission is plus the $295. By the way, we only waive the $295 if it's a VA loan because VA doesn't allow us to charge it. Otherwise, you pay it. If you're not actually charging them that, then you're going to pay it. It's going to come out of your commission. So keep that in mind. Also attend the closing. It's the easiest closing to go to. It's literally 10 minutes. So go. A lot of times, again, it's your last chance to see this person to say goodbye. And that's when I bring a closing gift with me as well. And then here our assignment is to prepare a CMA and role play a listing appointment with your partner. All right, guys. Next time is contracts and negotiations. And we're going to end with part 8, which is business building and setting goals. So that is next week. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, Gina. Have a good day.
You too.